Hello listener, if you're hearing this, you're still breathing. If you're new here, subscribe and comment below where you're listening from. This story is different from the others. This isn't just about surviving the dead, it's about surviving yourself. My name is Marcus Webb. Before everything collapsed, I was a broadcast engineer. Most people don't think about where radio signals come from when they turn on their car stereo or flip on the news. They just appear like magic. But I knew the truth. Those signals came from towers. Massive steel structures rising hundreds of feet into empty fields, powered by equipment that hummed 24/7, maintained by people like me who didn't mind being alone, and I mean alone. My job sent me to remote transmission sites that were deliberately built in the middle of nowhere. Better signal propagation, less interference, fewer complaints about the towers being isolated. Some sites were 50 miles from the nearest town. The kind of places where you could stand outside and not see another human being in any direction. I'd drive out in my company truck loaded with testing equipment, spare parts, and enough supplies to camp for a few days if needed. Most sites had a small control building at the base, concrete block construction, just big enough for the transmitter equipment, a bathroom, and maybe a cot if you got stuck overnight during a storm. The tower itself would rise up next to it, a lattice of steel beams and cross-bracing, painted in alternating bands of white and red, topped with aircraft warning lights that blinked all night long. My territory covered a dozen towers, scattered across 3 counties, FM stations, AM stations, emergency broadcast equipment. I knew every one of them, inside and out. Which ones had the newest gear, which ones were held together with duct tape and prayers, which ones had the best views from the top platforms. People at the main office thought I was weird. "Doesn't it get lonely out there?" they'd ask. "Don't you want a position closer to the city?" I'd just shrug. The truth was, I preferred the towers. Up there or in those small controlled buildings, everything made sense. Signal strength, frequency modulation, power output. It was all physics and math. Clean, predictable, not like dealing with people. I wasn't Exactly. I could handle the required small talk, the occasional company meeting, but it drained me. Every conversation felt like work. Every social situation was exhausting. The towers never demanded anything from me except technical competence. That I could provide. So when the outbreak started and people began clustering together for safety, forming groups, seeking community, I knew immediately I was going to do the opposite. Not out of some master survival plan, just because that's who I'd always been. The guy who worked better alone. The news broke on a Friday afternoon. I was at the main broadcast center, filing reports, when the emergency alert system activated. Not a test, the real thing. The message was brief and vague. Unusual medical situation. Hospitals requesting non-emergency patients avoid emergency rooms. More information to follow. By Saturday morning, unusual medical situation had become violent outbreak. By Saturday night, the news anchors were visibly shaken, reading copy about attacks, about victims who kept moving, about police overwhelmed. Sunday morning, I watched from the broadcast center as our own news team started falling apart. The morning anchor didn't show up, then the producer. By noon, we were down to a skeleton crew running automated programming. The station manager made an announcement: non-essential personnel should go home, stay with their families, wait for official instructions. I was technically essential. Someone had to keep the transmitters running, but I could see the fear in everyone's eyes, the way they clustered together, talking in low urgent voices about what they'd heard, what they'd seen on the highways coming in. That's when I made my decision. There was a tower I'd been scheduled to inspect the following week. Site 7, we called it. An old AM transmitter about 40 miles north of the city. The station had gone off the air 3 years ago, bankrupt, but the tower and equipment were still there. The property was in legal limbo. Nobody owned it. Nobody maintained it. Nobody visited it. It was perfect. I didn't tell anyone my plan. I just started loading my truck, not with the usual testing gear, but with supplies. I raided the station's supply closet, batteries, flashlights, first aid kits, went to my apartment and grabbed everything that mattered: camping gear, tools, clothing, every bit of non-perishable food I had. Then I stopped at 3 different stores on my way out of the city. They weren't looted yet, but they were chaotic. People arguing over toilet paper, of all things, while the news played footage of actual attacks. I bought what I could carry: canned goods, water purification tablets, propane canisters, rope, tarps. My truck groaned under the weight, suspension sagging, but it held. I took the back roads north, avoiding the main highways where I could already see traffic backing up as people tried to evacuate. The sun was setting when I turned off onto the dirt access road that led to Site 7. The tower appeared through the trees like a giant red and white skeleton, 300 feet of steel lattice, narrowing as it rose, topped with the AM antenna array. At the base sat the control building, a squat concrete structure with a metal door and no windows except for narrow ventilation slits near the roofline. I parked next to the building and just sat there for a moment, engine ticking as it cooled, looking up at that tower. The warning lights at the top were dark, no power to the site anymore. But the structure itself looked solid. I'd inspected it myself 8 months ago. The concrete foundation was sound, the steel showed minimal rust, the guy wires were properly tensioned, and it was empty. Completely, utterly empty. The nearest building was a farmhouse I could barely see in the distance, at least 3 miles away. The nearest road was the highway, 2 miles south. Nothing but flat agricultural land in every direction, already brown and dormant as winter approached. I got out of the truck. The silence was profound. No traffic noise, no voices, just wind rustling through the dead corn stalks in the field across the access road. I unlocked the control building with my master key and stepped inside. The interior was exactly as I remembered. One main room, maybe 20 by 20 feet, dominated by the old transmitter racks against the far wall. Dusty, but intact. A workbench along one side, a chemical toilet in a small closet, and in the back corner, a door that led to the tower access, a steel ladder running up inside the tower's center, protected from the weather. I did a quick structural check. Roof, solid. Walls, solid. Door, heavy steel. Good luck. The ventilation slits were too narrow for anything bigger than a bird to get through. There was no plumbing except a rain gutter system on the roof that fed into a collection tank. Long dry dot, it would work. It would absolutely work. I spent that first night unloading the truck and taking inventory. Food for maybe 3 weeks if I rationed carefully. Water, I had 20 gallons in containers, plus the purification tablets. Fuel for cooking and heat, 30 pounds of propane. Tools, rope, first aid, cold weather gear. Not enough. I'd need more, but it was a start. The transmitter equipment was dead, of course. No power to the site, but I understood these systems. The transmitter itself was old but functional. There were backup batteries in the rack, drained, but rechargeable. And outside, I'd noticed something I'd documented in my last inspection. Solar panels. Small ones, just enough to keep the aircraft warning lights running. But solar panels meant the possibility of power that night. Sleeping on the concrete floor wrapped in my sleeping bag, I heard them for the first time. Distant sounds carrying across the flat land. Sirens, gunfire, and something else, screaming. Not the screaming of fear, but of rage. Inhuman sounds that made my skin crawl. I lay there in the dark, listening to civilization tear itself apart 40 miles away, and felt nothing but relief that I was here instead of there. Day 2. I started work on making the place defensible. The control building was good, but the door was the weak point. It was steel, yes, but it opened outward. Someone with enough determination could smash or pry it open. I needed to reinforce it from the inside. I found my solution in the equipment racks. Heavy steel frames bolted to the concrete floor. They weren't going anywhere. I fabricated brackets from scrap metal using the tools in my truck, then installed a crossbar system, a length of steel pipe that could slide into brackets on either side of the door, turning it into a barricade that would hold against anything short of a battering ram. Next, the tower. The access ladder ran up the inside of the tower structure, protected from weather but open at the bottom. Anyone could climb it if they got past the building's door. I needed a way to make the tower accessible to me but not to anyone else. The solution was elegant. The first 30 feet of ladder was bolted together in sections. Using a cutting torch from my truck and about 6 hours of careful work, I removed the bottom 3 sections entirely. Now there was a 30-foot gap between ground level and where the ladder began. Unless you had serious climbing gear and skills, you weren't getting up there. But I still needed a way to get up and down. That's where the rope came in. I rigged a simple pulley system heavy climbing rope that I could lower from the first remaining platform when I needed to climb, then pull up behind me when I was done. Quick, simple, and it turned the tower into my private fortress. By the end of day 2, I was exhausted but satisfied. The building was secure. The tower was accessible only to me, and I had a perch 300 feet in the air where I could see everything coming from miles away. Day 3, I climbed the tower for the first time since securing it as my shelter. 300 feet doesn't sound like much until you're climbing it. Hand over hand, foot over foot, the ladder rungs cold, even through my gloves. Every 50 feet there was a small platform, just big enough to stand on and catch your breath. I stopped at each one, partly to rest, partly to look around. At 100 feet, I could see the farmhouse clearly, dark, no smoke from the chimney, no vehicles in the driveway. At 150 feet, I could see the highway, a few cars crawling along, but not many. At 200 feet, I could see the outskirts of the nearest town, smoke rising from somewhere near the center. At 300 feet, at the top platform, I could see everything. The world was dying, and I had the best seat in the house. The top platform was a metal grating, 6 feet by 6 feet, with a railing around the edge. The AM antenna array rose another 80 feet above me, a complex arrangement of cables and Up here, the wind was constant, cold, cutting through my jacket, but the view, I could see maybe 30 miles in every direction. Farmland, mostly, with clusters of trees marking where houses or towns sat. To the south, the city was a gray smudge on the horizon with columns of smoke rising from multiple points. To the north, nothing but empty land stretching to where the earth curved away. I sat down on the platform, back against the antenna mounting, and watched the sun set, orange and red across all that flat land, beautiful and terrible at the same time. That night, back in the control building, I got the radio working. The old transmitter was beyond my ability to fix without parts I didn't have. But I didn't need to broadcast, I just needed to receive. There was a monitoring receiver in the rack, designed to let engineers check how their own signal sounded. I bypassed the dead batteries, wired it directly to one of the solar panels, and was rewarded with a crackle of static. I tuned across the AM band first. Most frequencies were dead silence, but a few still had signals. Automated emergency broadcasts, looping the same messages: shelter in place, avoid contact with infected individuals, help is coming, right? The FM band was worse. Only 2 stations still broadcasting, both playing music with no DJ, just endless songs punctuated by silence where the commercials used to be. Ghost stations, running on automation until the power failed or someone shut them down. Then I tried shortwave, and that's where I found the voices. ... Anyone out there? Day 17 since. Food running low. ... They single quotes. Everywhere. ... Can't leave the building. ... Someone please. ... Madison County Sheriff's Department. Any responding units? We are overrun. Repeat. We are. Fragments. Desperate pieces of dying communication scattered across the spectrum. I listened for hours, not responding, just taking it in. Every voice was a story. Every story ended the same way. Silence. By day 5, I had the solar power system fully operational. The panels on the roof weren't big, maybe 200 watts total, but that was enough to keep batteries charged. Run LED lights. Power the radio. I wouldn't be running any heating or cooking on electricity, but I had propane for that. Water was my next priority. The rain collection system was functional but dry. I'd need rain, and forecasts, back when there were forecasts, had shown a dry spell for the next week. That meant rationing my bottled water while I worked on a more permanent solution. I found it in the form of a hand pump. The property sat over the same aquifer that fed the local farms. Back in the day, before the building had been connected to county water, there'd been a well. It was capped now, covered with a concrete pad, but I knew it was there. The inspection documents mentioned it. 3 days of work with a sledgehammer and a pry bar, and I had the cap off. The well was deep. I couldn't see bottom even with a flashlight, but when I dropped a weighted line down, it came back wet. The water was there. I fabricated a bucket system using the rope and pulleys I'd brought. Not elegant, but functional. Lower the bucket, haul up water, filter and purify it. Labor intensive, but I had nothing but time. By day 10, I had food, water, power, and shelter. The basics were handled. Now I had to think about security. The tower gave me visibility, but visibility worked both ways. Anyone looking for a tall structure could see it from miles off. During the day, the white and red paint stood out like a beacon. I couldn't paint over it. That would take more paint than I had, and the tower was too big. But I could be invisible myself. No lights at night that could be seen from a distance. No fires outside. All cooking inside with the door sealed. Minimal radio transmission, receive only. Never broadcast unless absolutely necessary. I was starting to think I might actually survive this. Day 12, I saw my first walker up close. I was up on the 150-foot platform doing a visual survey with binoculars, when movement on the access road caught my eye. A figure, moving with that distinctive shambling gait I'd seen on the news footage before the broadcasts stopped. Through the binoculars, I could see details. Male, probably middle-aged, wearing what looked like farm clothes, gray skin, something wrong with the jaw, hanging at an angle like it was broken. It walked right past the tower base without looking up, continued down the access road toward the highway, and disappeared into the distance. 20 minutes later, another one, then another. They were following the road, using it like a path. Not hunting, not searching, just migrating. Moving with some kind of purpose I couldn't understand. I counted 17 that day, all headed south, toward the city, or what was left of it. That night, I heard them, even inside the sealed control building, even with the door barricaded. I could hear them moaning, not loud, not constant, just there. A background noise that hadn't been there before. The sound of the world ending. Day 15, the scavenger came. I'd just finished my morning radio scan when I heard it. An engine, getting closer. I grabbed the binoculars and climbed to the 200-foot platform for a better view. A pickup truck, moving fast down the access road. It skidded to a stop next to my vehicle, and two men jumped out. Both armed. I could see rifles. They were checking my truck, looking in the windows, trying the doors. I'd locked it, of course, but that wouldn't stop someone determined. Then one of them looked up at the tower, pointed. They were talking. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read their body language. They'd seen the solar panels, the rain collection system, the signs that someone was using this place. My heart hammered. This was the scenario I'd dreaded. People meant complications. People meant conflict. People meant everything could fall apart. One of them approached the control building, tried the door, locked, banged on it. Hey, anyone in there? We're not here to cause trouble, just looking for supplies. Maybe we can trade. I stayed silent, motionless, on the platform 200 feet above them. The man banged again, harder. Come on, we know someone's here. We're not going to hurt you. We've got a group about 10 miles south. Good people, safety in numbers, you know? More silence from me. The two men conferred. One of them went back to their truck, came back with a crowbar. He wedged it into the door frame and started prying. I'd reinforced that door, but the frame itself was old concrete. If they worked at it long enough, they might get through. Decision time. I could stay hidden, hope they gave up, or I could engage. I chose option 3. From the tower platform, my voice carried clearly across the flat land. The building's empty, nothing inside but old equipment. You're wasting your time. Both men jumped, spinning around, rifles coming up. They couldn't see me. I was in the shadow of the antenna array, and they were looking into the morning sun. Who's that? Where are you? Doesn't matter. That building has nothing you want. Move on, that's your truck. Battery's dead. That's why it's still here. A lie, but a necessary one. The man with the crowbar looked up, shading his eyes, trying to spot me. You living up in that tower? That's crazy. Come down. Join our group. We've got real shelter, food stores, security. I'm fine where I am. Winter's coming, man. You can't stay up there when it really gets cold. I'll manage. At least let us take some supplies. We've got women and kids in our group. They need no— The word came out harder than I'd intended. There was a long pause. You're really going to let children go hungry? You got supplies you're not even using. I'm using all of it. Leave now. Another pause. Then the one with the crowbar said something to his partner I couldn't hear. The body language changed. Got tense, more aggressive. Here's what's going to happen, Crowbar said, raising his voice. We're going to break this door down. You can climb down and talk like a reasonable person, or you can stay up there and watch us take everything. Your choice. He went back to work on the door. His partner kept his rifle pointed up at the tower, covering him. I had about 3 minutes before they breached the door. 3 minutes to decide what kind of person I was going to be. The old Marcus would have let them take what they wanted. Avoid conflict. Stay hidden. Survive. But the old Marcus lived in a world with laws, police, consequences. That world was gone. I looked down at them. 2 armed men breaking into my shelter, my food, my survival. They weren't asking anymore. They were taking. I'd prepared for this possibility. On the platform next to me was a piece of equipment I'd brought up 2 days ago. A loose section of the tower's steel cross bracing, about 3 feet long, weighed maybe 20 pounds. Sharp edges where I'd cut it free. I picked it up, tested the weight. The physics were simple. An object falling from 200 feet would hit terminal velocity before impact. The force would be devastating. I looked down at the man with the crowbar, his back to me, focused on the door. One throw. One moment, he'd never know what hit him. My hand trembled. This wasn't a walker. This was a living person. Probably someone who'd been a decent human being 2 weeks ago. Now desperate and scared and trying to keep his group alive. but he was also breaking into my shelter, threatening my survival. Taking my choice away, I raised the steel beam, aimed and threw. It tumbled as it fell, spinning, catching sunlight. I tracked it all the way down. It hit the ground 3 feet to the left of the man with the crowbar. The impact was enormous. The steel beam hit the dirt access road like a meteor, kicking up dust and stones. Both men screamed, jumping back, rifles swinging toward the tower. Next one won't miss. My voice echoed off the control building walls. Leave now, don't come back. For a moment nobody moved. Then Crowbar looked at his partner, at the steel beam buried inches deep in the hard earth, and back up at where my voice had come from. You're insane, he shouted. Maybe, but I'm alive, and I'm staying that way. They backed toward their truck, rifles still up, watching the tower. Got in, the engine roared to life. They spun a U-turn on the access road and accelerated away, tires kicking up dust. I watched them until they were out of sight. Then I sat down hard on the platform, adrenaline making my hands shake so badly I had to grip the railing to steady them. I hadn't killed him, but I'd tried. I'd been willing to. That's what stopped my hands from shaking. Not relief, but the understanding of what I'd become capable of. 2 weeks. It had taken 2 weeks for me to reach the point where I could throw a 20-pound steel beam at another human being's head. I sat there on that platform for an hour, just breathing, just processing. The sun climbed higher, the wind picked up, and far below, the world kept ending without me. Day 18. The first real cold front moved in. Temperature dropped from the low 40s to the mid-20s overnight. Inside the control building, even with the propane heater running, I could see my breath. The concrete walls that provided such good protection also held the cold like a refrigerator. I added more layers. Thermal underwear, fleece, jacket, hat, gloves. My sleeping bag was rated for 20 degrees, but that assumed you had some ambient heat. Here I was barely staying comfortable. The bigger problem was the water. The well bucket came up with ice crystals forming on the surface. The purification process required liquid water. Ice wouldn't flow through the ceramic filter. I had to melt it first, using precious propane, which meant my fuel was being consumed faster than I'd planned. I did the math. At current consumption rate, I had maybe 40 days of propane left. Then I'd have no heat, no cooking, no water purification. Winter was just beginning. I needed more supplies, which meant another trip. I'd been avoiding this thought since the scavenger incident. Every trip away from the tower was a risk, but staying here meant slowly freezing or starving. Some risks you couldn't avoid. The nearest town was 8 miles southwest. Small place, maybe 1,500 people. I'd driven through it dozens of times on my way to tower sites. For gas stations, to grocery stores, a hardware store, a farm supply depot. If I could hit the hardware store and the farm supply depot, I could get propane, heavier clothing, maybe an actual cold weather survival tent I could set up inside the control building for additional insulation. I spent 2 days planning, studied the maps, plotted my route back roads, avoiding main streets, timed it leave at dawn, back before dark, prepared my truck, checked fluids, topped off fuel from the jerry cans I'd brought, cleared all the supplies out to make room for what I'd bring back. Day 20. I went down. The drive took 30 minutes, slow and cautious. I'd seen walkers on the roads before, and I didn't want to hit one at speed. Who knew what damage that could do to the truck, or what noise it would make? The town was dead. Not dead like empty, dead like a corpse. Cars crashed into buildings, bodies in the streets, windows smashed, smoke damage on several structures, and silence. That horrible, oppressive silence that screamed something was wrong. I crept through at 5 miles per hour, eyes scanning every direction. The walkers had been through here, that much was obvious. But where were they now? I couldn't see any moving figures, but that meant nothing. The hardware store was on the south edge of town. The parking lot had 3 cars, all with doors open, all empty. The store's front windows were smashed, the interior dark. I parked right at the entrance, nose pointed out for quick escape, engine running, driver's door open. I grabbed my crowbar and a flashlight and went in. The store had been looted, but not chaos everywhere, shelves knocked over, products scattered, but plenty still on the racks. People had grabbed what was closest, what was most obvious. They'd missed the good stuff. I worked fast. Propane canisters I found 8, loaded them into a shopping cart. Cold weather clothing, insulated coveralls, extra thermal layers, heavy gloves, a 2-man tent with a good rating, hand warmers, 3 boxes, a better water filter, rope, tarps, duct tape, batteries. 20 minutes, cart overflowing. I wheeled it to the truck, loaded everything, That's when I heard the moan. Inside the store. Back in the darkness past the ruined aisles, I froze, listened. The moan came again. Long and low and wrong. I should have left. I had what I needed, but something made me look back. Maybe curiosity. Maybe stupidity. I shined my flashlight into the store's interior. The beam caught movement about 50 feet back. A figure shambling forward, gray skin, dried blood down the front of what had been a work uniform. Our eyes met. For just a second, there was something in its face, some fragment of recognition of what it used to be. Then it was gone, replaced by empty hunger. It started forward faster, not running, but faster than the shambling walk. Purpose, I ran. Out of the store, to the truck, slammed the door. The walker came through the entrance behind me, arms outstretched. I threw the truck in reverse, punched the gas. The truck shot backward. I cranked the wheel, executed a spin turn that would have made a stunt driver proud. Shifted into drive and accelerated. In the rearview mirror. The walker stood in the parking lot, still reaching toward where I'd been. Then it was lost around a corner and gone. I didn't slow down until I was 3 miles out of town. Only then did I pull over, kill the engine, and sit there shaking. That thing had been a person. Days ago, maybe hours. That had been someone who worked at the hardware store, who had a family, who had hopes and dreams and favorite TV shows. Now it was just meat that moved. I drove back to the tower in silence, too numb to think. Back at Site 7. I unloaded in record time, got everything inside the control building, secured the door, climbed to the 100-foot platform just to get away from ground level. From up there, the world looked clean again. The approaching sunset painted everything gold and red. You couldn't see the bodies, the crashed cars, the smoke damage, just land and sky. I understood then why I'd chosen a tower. It wasn't just about security, it was about distance. Up here, the horror was abstract. Down there, it was real. Day 25. The temperature hit 15 degrees overnight, even with the new propane canisters, even with the tent set up inside the building creating a second layer of insulation, even with every piece of clothing I owned layered on my body. I was cold, deep cold, the kind of cold that makes you hurt even when you're sitting still. I knew I was in trouble. This was only November. January and February would be worse. Could I survive those months with what I had? The math said no. I needed a better heat source. The propane heater was designed for emergency use, not continuous operation. What I needed was a wood stove, but installing one would mean cutting a hole through the concrete roof for a chimney. A major project requiring tools and materials I didn't have. Unless. The tower itself was steel. Steel conducts heat. If I could build a fire at the base, inside the tower structure, the heat would radiate up through the metal. It was insane. It was dangerous. A fire inside the tower could damage the structure, or spread to the control building, or attract attention with the smoke and light. But I was freezing. Slow death versus fast risk. I chose the risk. I built a small fire pit in the area where I'd removed the tower ladder sections. Concrete pad underneath. Walls of concrete block I fabricated from the broken pieces of the well cap. A small fire just enough to warm the steel around it. The effect was immediate. The tower became a giant radiator, not hot, but warm. The concrete building, built right against the tower base, absorbed some of that warmth. For the first time in days, I could feel my fingers without painful tingling. The smoke was a problem. During the day, it was visible for miles. But at night, with a small fire of dry wood that burned clean, the smoke dispersed before anyone could spot it. I only burned fires at night. For hours after sunset, let it die down, seal the building before dawn. It added one more task to my daily routine, but it might save my life. Day 30. I made a mistake. I was scanning the radio bands, something I did every evening. Most frequencies were dead now. Even the automated emergency broadcasts had stopped. But I kept listening, kept hoping. That night, I found something. A voice. Faint, distant, but definitely human. Is anyone please? Need help. My hand went to the transmit button before I'd even thought it through. After 30 days of silence, the need to respond was overwhelming. I pushed the button. I'm here. I hear you. What's your location? Static. Then, oh God. Thank you. Thank you. We're at Pine Grove, a high school. There's 12 of us. We're trapped. They're everywhere outside. Pine Grove, I knew it. 15 miles southwest. Small town, population maybe 800. What do you need? I heard myself ask. Food, we're out. Been 3 days since we ate. Some of us. The kids are. Double quotes kids. Why did it have to be kids? I don't have much, I said. I'm barely surviving myself. Anything please, even just a little. We can send someone to meet you. Anywhere you say please. I sat there, finger on the button, frozen. I had food. Not a lot, but some. I could spare a few days worth and still make it through winter, probably. But sending someone to meet them meant revealing my location, and 12 people was too many to help. If I helped these 12, I'd have to help the next group, and the next. I'd become a resource, a target. The voice came again, more desperate. Please, we have children. A baby, please. I released the transmit button, switched off the radio, sat in the darkness. That night, I didn't sleep. I listened to the wind howl around the tower and wondered if I was even human anymore. The voices started not on the radio. In my head, I'd wake up thinking someone had said my name. I'd turn around, certain someone was behind me. But I was always alone. Isolation psychology. I knew what it was. I'd read about Antarctic researchers, solo sailors, people who spent long periods alone. The human brain isn't designed for solitary existence. It starts to fill in the gaps. I tried to compensate. I talked to myself, narrated my actions. Okay Marcus, time to check the solar panels. Watch your step on the ladder. Yep, panels look good. No ice buildup. It helped. A little. But the nights were harder. In the darkness, sealed in the control building with just the small LED light, the silence was suffocating. I'd catch myself holding my breath, listening for sounds that weren't there. I started keeping the radio on, even when there was nothing but static. The white noise was better than silence. Sometimes I'd even respond to it, pretending there was someone on the other end. Yeah, weather's getting rough. But I'm managing. How about you? Still holding out at your location? Good. Crazy. Absolutely. But it kept me sane. Paradox of isolation. You have to act a little crazy to stay sane. Day 40. Movement on the access road. Not walkers this time. A person living, moving with purpose. I watched through binoculars from the 200-foot platform. Male, probably mid-30s, carrying a large backpack. He was moving carefully, checking his surroundings every few steps. When he reached the base of the tower, he stopped and looked up. I said nothing, didn't move. He walked the perimeter of the control building, tried the door locked, examined the tower structure, and then he did something that made my blood run cold. He pulled climbing gear from his pack. Rope, harness, ascenders. He was going to climb the tower without the ladder sections. The only way up was using the tower's cross-bracing as improvised hand and footholds. Difficult, but possible for someone with the right gear and skills. I had maybe 20 minutes before he reached my level. I climbed higher, to the 300-foot platform. Only one way up from there. You had to use the tower structure itself. No platforms. If he followed me, I'd have the high ground. But then what? Fight him 300 feet in the air. We'd both die. I needed a different approach. I climbed back down to the 250-foot platform, waited, listened to the sound of his breathing, his gear clinking against the steel. When his head appeared at the platform edge, I was waiting with the steel bar in my hand. Stop, I said. Calm, quiet. He froze, looked up at me. From this angle, I could see his face. Weathered, tired, not threatening, just exhausted. I just want to talk, he said. Talk from down there. I've been walking for days. I'm tired, please. Just let me rest on the platform for a minute. No, I'm not going to hurt you, I don't know that. You don't know I will either. He had a point, but trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. My name's David, he said. I'm an engineer, mechanical engineer. I've been moving north, trying to get away from the cities. Saw your tower, thought maybe you'd be willing to trade. I've got skills. I can help with maintenance, repairs. Don't need help. Everyone needs help. No one survives winter alone. Not really. Those words hit harder than I wanted to admit. I can keep moving, David continued. Find somewhere else. But I'm asking human to human, can I please just rest here for an hour? Then I'll go, I promise. I looked at him, really looked. His hands were shaking from fatigue. His face was pale. This wasn't a threat. This was someone at the end of his rope. 1 hour, I heard myself say, then you leave. Relief flooded his face. Thank you. He climbed onto the platform, collapsed against the railing, breathing hard. I stayed on the platform above, steel bar in hand, watching him. We sat in silence for maybe 5 minutes. Then he spoke. How long have you been up here? 40 days, alone. Yes. That's incredible. And terrible. It's survival, is it? He looked up at me. Or is it just ... existing? I didn't answer. I was in a group, David said. 32 people. We'd fortified an apartment complex in the suburbs. Had supplies, weapons, a plan. It worked for a while. What happened? Someone got bitten. Hid it. By the time we realized, it was too late. Half the group died in one night. The rest scattered. I've been alone for a week. He paused, staring out at the landscape below. You know what I learned. Being with people is dangerous, but being alone is worse. The danger with people is external violence, betrayal, infection. The danger alone is internal. You start to hollow out, become less than human, better than being dead. He looked at me again. What's the point of surviving if you lose what makes you human in the process? I didn't have an answer for that. We sat in silence for the rest of the hour. When the time was up, David stood, shouldered his pack, and began to descend. Where will you go? I asked. Not keep moving. Maybe find somewhere defensible. Maybe find other survivors who aren't insane yet. He paused on the ladder. You should consider leaving this tower, before it's too late. Before you forget what other people's voices sound like. Then he climbed down and was gone. That night, I couldn't get his words out of my head. The danger alone is internal. You hollow out. Was I hollowing out? I'd been here 40 days, and already I was talking to myself, hearing voices, debating whether to let someone rest on my tower. 40 days. And I felt more disconnected from my humanity than I'd ever felt. But I was alive. That had to count for something. Day 50. The storm hit. I'd seen it coming on my weather radio, one of the few automated systems still functioning. A major winter storm, Arctic air mass, potential for heavy snow and dangerous wind chills. I sealed the control building completely, taped over the ventilation slits to prevent drafts, hung tarps inside for extra insulation, fired up the propane heater to maximum, prepared to wait it out. The storm arrived at sunset. Wind hit first, screaming around the tower with a sound like a jet engine. Then the snow, not falling, flying horizontally, driven by 50-mile-per-hour gusts. Inside the building, I could hear metal groaning. The whole tower was flexing in the wind, designed to do exactly that, but the sound was terrifying, like the structure was crying out in pain. The temperature inside the building dropped despite the heater. Ice formed on the interior walls. My breath came out in thick clouds. I retreated into the tent, into my sleeping bag, wearing every piece of clothing I owned, and waited. The storm lasted 3 days. On the morning of day 4, the wind stopped. I cracked the door open and looked outside. The world was white. Snow had drifted against the building to a height of 5 feet. The tower was encased in ice, every beam and strut coated in frozen glaze. The access road had vanished under 3 feet of snow. I was trapped, sealed in by winter itself. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't leave now even if I wanted to. The truck wouldn't move in this snow. Walking would be suicide. I was here until spring. 3 months. Minimum. I climbed to the 100-foot platform carefully, because the ladder rungs were ice. The view was stunning and horrible, white in every direction, smooth and pristine, broken only by the dark lines of trees and roads. And movement. Even through the snow, I could see them. Walkers, dozens of them, scattered across the landscape. The storm hadn't stopped them. Nothing would. Day 60. The food situation became critical. I'd been rationing carefully, but 3 months of winter stretched my supplies past the breaking point. I did the math again, and again, and again, hoping it would somehow change. It didn't. At current consumption, 40 days of food remaining, maybe 50 if I cut portions to starvation levels. 80 days until spring. The math didn't work. I looked at my options. Option 1, stay here, ration food, down to almost nothing, hope spring came early. Option 2, try to reach town through the snow, scavenge more supplies. Option 3, broadcast on the radio, try to connect with other survivors, possibly trade. Option 1 meant slow starvation. Option 2 was suicide in this weather. Option 3 was, I'd been avoiding the radio. After the incident with Pine Grove, I'd kept transmissions to an absolute minimum. But now, what choice did I have? That night, I powered up the transmitter, got the old AM system running for the first time in weeks, adjusted the frequency, checked the power output, then I broadcast, "This is Marcus Webb at Site 7, coordinates 42.3 north, 94.7 west. I'm a broadcast engineer, currently sheltering in a radio tower. I have technical skills, functioning equipment, and a defensible position. I'm looking to make contact with other survivors for the purpose of information exchange and possible mutual aid. If anyone hears this, please respond." I kept it brief, professional, non-desperate, even though desperation was exactly what I felt. Then I waited. Static. An hour passed. Nothing. Another hour. Still nothing. I was about to shut down when the speaker crackled. Site 7. This is Jesus. Someone actually answered. This is Tom Bradley. I'm at the county hospital, about 20 miles south of your position. How many people do you have there? My hand trembled as I keyed the transmit button. Just me. Just you. You've been surviving alone for how long? 60 days. Silence on the other end. Then, that's either impressive or insane. Maybe both. What do you need? Information. Status updates. What's happening in the area? The area's gone. Hospital was overrun 3 weeks ago. I'm in the maintenance tunnels underneath with 4 other people. We've got some supplies, but we're trapped. Can't get to the surface. Those things are everywhere up there. How long can you hold out? Maybe 2 weeks. After that, a pause. Listen, are you serious about that defensible position? Could you take in more people? Here it was. The question I'd been dreading. No, I said. I can barely feed myself, and I'm completely snowed in. Nobody's getting here until spring. Spring, right. His voice went flat. Then I guess this was just to hear another voice before the end. I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. Good luck, Marcus. Hope you make it. The transmission cut. I sat there in the darkness, the weight of that conversation crushing down on me. 5 people, trapped in tunnels, waiting to starve. And I couldn't help them, wouldn't help them, because helping them might mean my own death. I stopped counting. The days had blurred together into one long frozen nightmare. Wake, eat a tiny portion of food, check systems, tend the fire, eat another tiny portion, sleep, repeat, every day the same. The voices in my head were constant now. Full conversations, sometimes with people I knew from before, sometimes with strangers, sometimes with the dead. Marcus, you should come down, my mother said. Except she wasn't there. She'd been dead for 5 years. I can't, I answered out loud. I have to stay up here. You're going to die up there, alone, better than dying down there, surrounded by the dead. Are you sure? I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure of anything anymore. The physical effects of starvation were setting in. Weakness, dizziness, trouble concentrating. My body was consuming itself, burning muscle for energy. I could see my hands turning skeletal, every tendon visible under thin skin. I needed food, but there was no food. The well water kept me alive, but you can't live on water alone. Day 80-something, lost count, doesn't matter. Climbing the tower had become dangerous. My hands couldn't grip properly. My legs shook on every rung, but I forced myself to do it anyway, because movement was the only thing keeping me from giving up entirely. From the 200-foot platform, I could see smoke, far to the south, maybe 20 miles. Someone had a fire, a big one, survivors, or just buildings burning. I should have cared. Should have felt hope or curiosity or something. I felt nothing. David had been right. I was hollowing out. The survival instinct that had driven me to this tower, that had kept me alive through cold and hunger and isolation, was fading, being replaced by a numb emptiness that was worse than fear. I was becoming a walker, not physically, mentally, moving through routines without thought, without purpose, without humanity. Day 90-something. I'd been staring at the radio for hours, or maybe minutes. Time didn't work right anymore. There was a voice, had been a voice, was going to be a voice. Past and future blurred together. ... Anyone out there? ... Please. Is anyone? My hand moved to the transmit button. Muscle memory, but I couldn't remember why. Why did voices matter? Why did people matter? We were all going to die anyway, alone or together. What was the difference? My finger hovered over the button. Press it and connect. Press it and acknowledge that other humans existed. Press it and remember what it meant to be part of something larger than my own survival. Or don't press it. Stay silent. Let the voice fade into static. Let the last connection to humanity dissolve into white noise. I sat there, frozen, unable to decide. And then I heard something that wasn't on the radio. Scratching. Metal on metal. Someone was climbing the tower. The sound cut through my fog like a knife. Adrenaline flooded my system, clarity returning in a rush. Someone was coming. After 90 days, someone had found me. I grabbed the steel bar, forced my weak legs to carry me to the platform edge. Looked down. A figure was climbing the tower structure, not using the ladder that was still removed, using the cross bracing, exactly like David had done. But this wasn't David. This was faster, more aggressive, climbed with a determination that spoke of violence. I watched the figure ascend. 70 feet, 80, 90, getting closer. At 100 feet, close enough for me to see details. Male, heavily built, face hidden by a scarf, but the way he moved, precise, controlled, dangerous. This wasn't someone looking for help. This was someone who'd seen my broadcasts, tracked my signal, come to take what I had, my tower, my supplies, my survival. He reached the 150-foot platform, looked up, saw me. Marcus Webb. His voice was rough. You're a hard man to find. I said nothing, gripped the steel bar tighter. I've been listening to your broadcasts, tracking your signal. Took me 3 weeks to narrow down your location. Another week to get here through the snow. He started climbing toward my level. Nothing personal, but you've got something I need. This tower, the equipment, the defensible position, and I'm taking it. He pulled a knife from his belt. Long blade, meant for fighting, not utility. Decision point. I could try to fight, weak, starved, barely able to stand, I'd lose. Or I could run, climb higher. By time I climbed, up past the 200-foot platform, past 250, legs screaming with every step, arms trembling, but I climbed. At 300 feet, I couldn't go higher without climbing the antenna structure itself. This was the end of the line. The man reached my platform, stood there, knife in hand, not even breathing hard. Nowhere left to run, he said. I backed to the edge of the platform, nothing behind me but 300 feet of air and the frozen ground below. You don't have to do this, I said. My voice was barely a whisper. There's room, we could share. He laughed. Share? With someone who can't even stand up straight. You're already dead. You just don't know it yet. He stepped forward, knife raised. I looked past him, at the tower stretching down, at the white landscape, at the world that had ended and taken everything except this one terrible moment, and I realized something. I didn't want to die. Not like this. Not after surviving 90 days of hell. Not alone on a frozen tower with a knife in my gut. I wanted to live. Hollow or whole, broken or complete. I wanted to survive. The man lunged. I dropped, not off the platform, through it. There was a maintenance hatch in the platform floor, a way to access the interior of the tower. I'd noted it on day one but never used it. I dropped through, 10 feet down to the platform below, hit hard, rolled, heard him cursing above me. I scrambled to the ladder, started descending, fast, too fast. My feet missed rungs, my hands slipped, but I kept going. The man was coming. I could hear him on the ladder above me, gaining at the 200-foot platform. I grabbed the fire extinguisher I'd placed there weeks ago, turned, aimed up. He was maybe 20 feet above me, still climbing down. Exposed, I pulled the pin and sprayed. The white chemical foam shot upward in a thick stream, hit him directly in the face. He screamed, lost his grip, caught himself with one hand. The other hand, the one with the knife, fumbled for the ladder. I kept spraying until the extinguisher was empty. Then I dropped it and climbed down faster than I'd ever moved in my life. Hit the 100-foot platform, kept going, 50 feet, ground level. At the base, I didn't stop. Ran to the control building, got inside, slammed the door, threw the barricade bar in place, collapsed against the wall, heart hammering, lungs burning, silence. I waited, listening for sounds of pursuit. Nothing. Minutes passed. Then I heard it, a scream from outside, wordless, rage and pain. Then silence again. I didn't go out to check. I stayed in the building, barricaded in, waiting for morning. When dawn came, I climbed to the 100-foot platform, looked down. The man was gone. No body, no sign of him. Just tracks in the snow leading away from the tower, heading south. He'd given up, or gone for help. Either way, I'd won, but the victory was hollow, because I knew the truth now. I couldn't defend this tower forever. Eventually, someone stronger would come, someone faster, someone more desperate. This wasn't survival. It was borrowed time. Day 100, I sat in the control building, staring at the radio. The same radio I'd used to broadcast my location. The same radio that had led that man to me. David's words echoed in my head. The danger alone is internal. You hollow out. He'd been right. 90 days of isolation had turned me into something less than human. But yesterday, facing death, I'd felt something I hadn't felt in months. I'd wanted to live, not just survive live, which meant I needed to change. Stop hiding. Stop isolating. Reach out. I powered up the transmitter one more time. This is Marcus Webb at Site 7. I've been broadcasting for months, mostly just listening, afraid to really connect because connection meant risk. But I've learned something. The risk of isolation is worse than the risk of connection. If anyone out there is listening, if anyone needs help or can offer it, I'm here. Not as a fortress, not as a lone survivor, just as a person who's tired of being alone. I waited, not expecting an answer, just putting it out there. The speaker crackled. Site 7. This is Jennifer Marks, broadcasting from a farmhouse about 12 miles northeast of your position. I'm here with 3 others. We've got food, medical supplies, heat. We've been listening to your broadcasts for weeks. We were starting to think you'd given up. My throat went tight. I almost did, but you didn't. That counts for something. Listen, Marcus, we know you're not in great shape. We've heard it in your voice. Winter's only going to get worse. You need people, and honestly, we could use someone with technical skills. Radio equipment, electrical systems, that's valuable. I don't know if I can make it to your location. The snow, we have a snowmobile, we can come to you, pick you up, bring you back here, if you're willing. Was I willing to leave my tower, to trust strangers, to risk everything on the hope that people could be better than what I'd seen? I looked around the control building, at the concrete walls that had protected me, at the tower stretching up into the gray sky, at the empty food containers and the dying propane heater and the radio that had been my only connection to the world. This place had saved me, but it was also killing me. Yeah, I said, I'm willing. Good. Give us 6 hours. And Marcus, thank you for reaching out. That took courage. Courage. I didn't feel courageous. I felt terrified, but maybe that was what courage was, doing the right thing despite the terror. I shut down the radio, packed what I could carry. Took one last climb up the tower. From the 300-foot platform, I could see the farmhouse in the distance. Smoke rising from the chimney. Signs of life in a dead world. I'd come to this tower seeking safety. I'd found it, but safety alone wasn't enough. Humans needed more than just survival. We needed connection, purpose, community, even if it meant risk, even if it meant possible betrayal or death, because the alternative, the hollow existence of isolation, was a death all its own, just slower. The snowmobile appeared on the access road as the sun was setting. 3 people. They waved. I waved back. It was time to climb down, time to rejoin the human race, time to find out if David had been right, if there was still a way to survive without losing what made us human. I descended the tower one last time, left my fortress behind, and walked toward the uncertain future with something I hadn't felt in 100 days. Hope. If this story made you think about isolation, about what you'd do when safety means loneliness, hit that like button, subscribe for more realistic survival horror, comment below where you're listening from, and answer this. Would you choose absolute safety but total isolation, or would you risk connection? Stay warm, stay human, and remember, surviving the apocalypse isn't just about staying alive, it's about staying yourself. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double check responses. Sonnet 4. 5. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double